Recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the amendment.
Thank you. During my time on the felony bench, one of the saddest things that I would ever see would be the effects of the sins of parents upon children. Countless times at the end of a trial, or a sentencing, I would have the child come up and make sure they understood this was not your fault. You should have no guilt feel. This is not your fault. The most quoted book in the House and Senate during the entire history of Congress has been the Bible. And one of the things I love about it is the effort to avoid punishing children for the sins of their parents. And yet this is what this appears to do. We've already seen the results, as my friends have already indicated, of Democratic parties or policies like in New York City, Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco. They got an awful lot of bailout money. We've seen the damage that's been done, and we don't need to do more damage. We're about $29 trillion in debt. We don't have the money to be paying reparations. So if there is an award of reparations to people that were not slaves by people who had no slaves, then it will be grandchildren from now that will be punished and have to pay that price. But the truth is, at the rate that we're going, the degrading, the downgrading of our credit worthiness during the Obama administration by Standard & Poor's will start happening by others, because we will have shown ourselves to have been untrustworthy when it comes to spending. We could not control it. I've seen the documents where my great-grandfather signed when he came from Europe in 1870. I know there was horrendous wrongs done. Slavery is wrong. It's wrong for the 40 million or so that are being held in slavery right now. But if we look at the history, the Republican Party was against slavery. The Democratic Party platform of 1840, 44, 48, 52, 56 supported slavery. And in fact, the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850 that required law enforcement officers to arrest potential slaves just on the word of one person is outrageous. And yet that was supported in the Democratic Party platform. The Virginia 1902 Constitution was engineered by Carter Glass, who was a U.S. representative and senator, even Secretary of Treasury under Woodrow Wilson. He exclaimed, discrimination, why, that's precisely what we propose. In 1912, Democrat President Woodrow Wilson's administration began a racial segregation policy for U.S. government employees. And that was also followed up by Democrat President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He also, according to the American Journal of Public Health, prior to his presidency, Roosevelt not only banned blacks from receiving treatment at his polio facility in Warm Springs, but he required black staff to live in a basement of the facility. In 1964, the Democratic Party led 75 calendar day filibuster against the '64 Civil Rights Act. And there were 96 House members, Democrats, that voted against it. And that goes on. And I know some say, yeah, but then the racists in the Democratic Party switched parties. One did, Strom Thurmond, but if you go back and check, there may have been 3 House members that changed parties, but the 96 House members that voted against it, the senators that voted against it and fought against it, including Robert Byrd, most of them did not change parties. They stayed in the Democratic Party. So if we're going to force this on anybody, it ought to be the one party that has done so much damage. And that's why I would submit this amendment. If we're going to punish children for the sins that even their parents didn't do, then this ought to be the way to do it. I hope that we won't compound some horrendous sins by punishing great-grandchildren of people that did wrong. And I yield back.